Christmas is a time for giving, which should mean it's a very important time of year for charities, except perhaps it isn't. Professor Cathy Pharoah of Cass Business School has done some pretty in-depth quantitative research. She's looked at 46,000 households in the UK, and her conclusions about our generosity, or lack of it, are quite startling. I asked her to tell me a bit about her research.
Well, the Office of National Statistics carries out a big survey of household spending every year. So what we did was take data from 6 years and pull it so that we had a very big sample in which we could study patterns of giving by season.
So why did you decide to do this research?
Because a lot of charities do target their fundraising at Christmas time, and there is a general belief that people give more to charity at Christmas time. I am often rung up by journalists saying, oh, how much do people give at Christmas, and does generosity increase? But we haven't had much data before now, and that's what prompted this research.
Your conclusion was that people do become more generous, but not by much. Can you explain, please?
Yes, well, what we found was that average giving across the population as a whole goes up by about 5% at Christmas, and this was quite a nice finding. But it's not due to people making bigger gifts, it's because more people actually give at Christmas.
Does that 5% represent a few people giving a lot more, or a lot of people giving just a bit more?
It's the broad base. It's more people giving a little bit more.
How did you conclude that?
Well, what we concluded was that extra giving at Christmas is probably largely spontaneous and casual giving, and a lot of it is occurring through extra collections on the street. The Salvation Army band with its tins is sort of synonymous with Christmas, and so a lot of people will pop a bit more in a can, but we don't think that there's a general trend to sort of systematically make bigger gifts at Christmas.
So this isn't people being generous, this is charities being opportunistic.
That's what we think. And also they're out and about more. They've got a lot of money in their pockets, they've got a lot of loose change, quite happy to drop it in a can. And we particularly think this is the case because the age group that showed the largest increase in giving was the 25 to 34-year-olds, the young people about town.
Did you get a sense of who the typical charity giver is?
Well, the typical charity giver on the whole is female, middle-aged, middle class, living in the southwest. This is sort of charity lower. But we didn't find that was the group that increased its giving at Christmas.
Who was that?
The groups which mainly increase their giving at Christmas are the over 65s and younger people between 25 to 34. And there's quite a big and significant increase in giving in those groups.
And one thing which was a bit of a surprise, Christmas charity giving doesn't compare well to Christmas spending on alcohol.
No. On the whole, we spend about 13% more at Christmas than at other times of the year, and a tenth of that extra spending goes on alcohol.
So is there anything that charities could do that could increase their chances of being on the receiving end of some Christmas generosity?
Well, we thought perhaps if charities could link some of people's extra spending on alcohol to charitable giving, that might be a way that charities could cash in on some of the extra spending at Christmas.
So collection in pubs?
Well, we were thinking more of sort of deals with wine dealers, whereby a certain number of bottles could be bought and branded with the charity, and a proportion of the profits dedicated to the charity.
Do you have any non-alcohol related tips for charities?
Oh well, I think it's I think they've just got to be there. They've got to be on the streets. They've got to be out and about where people are doing their shopping. People spend a lot of money on other people at Christmas time, and we've seen that spending on gifts to people outside your family doubles. If charities could make sure they're around when people are choosing these gifts and spending their money, they might be able to capture a bit more.
One last question. Was there anything in these results that really surprised you?
Well, what surprised me was that charitable giving didn't increase more than it does at Christmas time, because it is a time of giving, and I think a lot of people possibly think they give more at Christmas time than they actually do to charities. I think we might have an impression that we're more generous than we actually are.
But actually we're Scrooges.
Well, maybe we're just thinking too much about other things. A bit distracted.
Professor Cathy Pharoah, happy Christmas and thank you very much.